I'm Veronica Dudo. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, wartime demands, what President Trump is urging America's allies to do as the war with Iran rages on. Voter ID. Supporters of a new bill say it would make American elections more secure. Opponents say it would lead to suppression. We're on the Hill with a look at both sides. Plus, a message of peace.
God cannot be enrolled in the darkness. Rather, he comes always to give light.
The powerful message Pope Leo had for the people of Rome and the world. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us on the feast day of St. Finian Lower. Our top story tonight. President Donald Trump says we will soon get the Hormuz Strait open, safe and free. He's calling on other countries to step up and take care of that passage. Iran has effectively halted ship traffic through the narrow strait, choking the flow of oil and causing concern for the global economy. President Trump went before cameras today saying Iran is now a paper tiger. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports.
Veronica, President Donald Trump says Iran's military capability has been destroyed 100%, but he warns they can still send in drones, drop mines, or fire close-range missiles. He wants to keep the strait safe and open.
The Strait of Hormuz shut down and the pressure turned up to get ships flowing through and ease soaring oil prices. Today, President Donald Trump says more than 30 Iranian mine-laying ships have been destroyed. Still,
now they can put them on other types of ships, I guess, and drop them in, but we don't know that any have even been dropped in. We're not sure that any have been. That's a big negative for them if they do it. It's a form of suicide.
The president said he strongly encourages other nations to get involved, and he was asked who's on board.
You mean who are the countries?
Yes, sir.
I'd rather not say yet, but we'll be announcing Marco Rubio and the various people that are doing that will be announcing.
European countries say they want the Trump administration to explain its goals in the Iran war before they agree to send any warships to help protect the Strait of Hormuz. In London, the British Prime Minister says the Strait of Hormuz has to reopen to ensure stability in the market, adding it's not a simple task.
We're working with all of our allies, including our European partners, to bring together a viable collective plan that can restore freedom of navigation in the region as quickly as possible.
And as Russia and Ukraine continue their war, the European Union worries Vladimir Putin could come out ahead financially.
And of course, the Strait of Hormuz being closed is also to the benefit of Russia to fund this war.
The German foreign minister says more clarity is needed.
First of all, we want to hear from Israel and the United States of America when they intend to have achieved their military objectives in Iran.
Also, President Trump's upcoming summit with China may be on hold due to the Iran war. The president says China should help keep the strait open.
So China is a great example. They get 91% of their oil from the Hormuz Straits, which we protected for years.
President Trump also confirms he spoke with French President Macron about getting help with the Strait of Hormuz, and is confident that France will step up. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Since the war began, we've seen prices go up at the pump, but as the Strait of Hormuz remains contested, we could see other effects as well. Julian Binfield, the Associate Director of the Food and Agriculture Policy Research Unit at the University of Missouri, joins me now. Thank you so much for being here. Now, the hostilities in the Middle East could threaten the global supply chain. Can you explain to our viewers the possible impact it might have for Americans?
Well, in the agricultural sector, the Middle East is a very important region, particularly in the provision of fertilizers. So we're seeing that in the U.S. at the moment. And around the world, where there's been disruption to some of the supply chains that have seen the prices of fertilizer and energy rising significantly.
Now, when would we start to see any possible effects?
Well, I think there's probably seeing some effects on the farms at the moment. Of course, the farmers in the U.S. have had time here to prepare. They've been planting beginning soon here. And they will have secured some of their fertilizer supply already. So some of the imports of the fertilizers for today's crops have already been made. But there's some disruptions to the supply chain there. We're seeing prices increase. So we'll probably see, as we go through planting season, some reaction for farmers in the US to these higher fertilizer prices, maybe switching to different crops that use fertilizers less intensively.
Now, many countries around the world receive commodities via the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump has asked other countries to help secure the strait and end the blockade. Is this likely, and how quickly would this then impact prices and, of course, everything that farmers are needing to schedule now?
Yes, I mean, this all depends on how long supply routes stay closed. It's an issue for fertilizers, but also for energy industries as well. You know, natural gas is one of the main raw materials for fertilizer production, and we've seen those natural gas prices rise around the world, particularly in Europe. That's a major producer as well. So the longer that there's disruption in place, the strait's closed, but also if there's major destruction of production facilities in the Middle East, then that would tend to lead to longer effects here. And the more that it drags on, the more there's going to be impacts on agricultural production and the abilities of other countries around the world to produce their agricultural products as well.
So it really seems to be sort of a wait-and-see game at this moment. Julian Binfield, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Another country feeling the effects is Cuba, which today reported a nationwide blackout. The country faces an energy crisis, blaming the lack of oil shipments on the U.S. energy blockade. Cuba's president said the country has not received oil shipments in 3 months. This after Trump threatened to place tariffs on countries who provided oil to Cuba. The western half of the island had lost power earlier this month and had been relying on solar power and natural gas. As war and violence grip the Middle East, including parts of the Holy Land, an urgent appeal comes from Rome as we approach Holy Week. Every year on Good Friday, a collection is taken up in Catholic churches around the world for the custody of the Holy Land. It's a Franciscan mission that serves and helps to safeguard the Christian holy places in the Holy Land. Today, Cardinal Claudio Guarati, prefect of the dicastery for Eastern churches, sent a letter to bishops encouraging them in this year's appeal, saying, quote, "Many Christians in the Holy Land have lost everything, including the work that depended on the presence of pilgrims who now, almost without exception, are afraid to return. The faithful who remain in the holy places know that through your support, and sometimes only through it, even if security cannot yet be guaranteed, schools can reopen, new homes can be built, and care can be provided where destruction has been total." His Eminence also expressed his gratitude for Christians' support of the mission in the Holy Land. Turning now to Ukraine, where firefighters battled an intense blaze earlier today after a deadly Russian drone strike on the southern city of Zaporizhia. At least one woman died and 3 others were injured as a result of the strike. The youngest injured is a 15-year-old girl who is in critical condition, according to local officials. This comes as Ukraine seeks funding and access to advanced anti-drone technology in exchange for helping Middle Eastern countries defend against Iranian attack drones. Ukrainian President Zelensky says that Ukraine is not taking part in combat operations against Iran, but only providing expertise. A voting reform bill is set to tie up the Senate floor this week and probably beyond. It could be the most partisan and bitter debate since the record-breaking government shutdown last fall. Republicans are seeking to overhaul federal elections laws. Democrats accuse them of trying to rig November's midterm elections by making it more difficult to vote. Let's check in with Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales. Eric.
Hey, good evening to you. The Safeguard American Voter Eligibility, or SAVE Act, would be the biggest election reform bill in years. The House passed it last month, and it's now on the front burner in the Senate, where it faces an uphill battle. President Trump wants the bill debated for weeks, if not months, until Democrats give in. But Senate Majority Leader John Thune says that's not going to happen.
We don't have the votes either to proceed, get on a talking filibuster, nor to sustain one if we got on it. But that is just a function of math, and there isn't anything I can do about that.
The main provisions of the SAVE Act include proof of citizenship when registering to vote, voter roll verification by states, and election day deadline for all mail-in ballots. President Trump said he won't sign any bills until the SAVE Act is passed, posting on his Truth Social account, quote, "The SAVE Act, an 88% issue with all voters. It must be done immediately. It supersedes everything else." The president also wants Senate Republicans to add amendments banning transgender surgeries on children and stopping biological men from competing in women's sports, but they are likely to be blocked. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called it one of the most despicable pieces of legislation he's ever seen.
The SAVE Act is nothing more than Jim Crow 2.0. It is a voter suppression bill. It takes away vote by mail. It makes it harder for people to register and would require states to hand over voter rolls to election deniers at the Department of Justice.
Senator John Kennedy, a co-sponsor of the bill, says the SAVE Act is unlikely to get any Democrat votes.
The shortest way home is to pursue the SAVE Act through reconciliation. That gives us the opportunity to do it with only Republican votes.
President Trump is dialing up the pressure. He warned Republicans if they don't pass the SAVE Act, then the GOP could lose the November midterm elections and even control of Congress, putting his agenda in jeopardy. The action kicks off tomorrow and the Senate could be in around the clock, possibly through the weekend. But it's still not clear whether the Senate can pass the bill or even get a final vote. Veronica, back to you.
As the latest partial government shutdown drags on, security lines at airports across the U.S. continue to grow. This was the scene at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport Sunday after TSA workers missed their first full paycheck. Homeland Security said on X that more than 300 agents have quit since the start of the shutdown. Democrats in Congress have said DHS will not be funded until new restrictions are placed on federal immigration operations. The CEOs of the nation's top airline companies are urging Congress to restore funding to DHS and pay federal aviation workers during the shutdown. The open letter published Sunday online said in part, yet once again, air travel is the political football amid another government shutdown. This problem is solvable and there are solutions on the table. Now it's up to you, Congress, to move forward on bipartisan proposals that will get federal aviation workers, including TSA officers, U.S. Customs clearance officers at airports, and air traffic controllers paid during shutdowns. TSA officers just received $0 paychecks. That is simply unacceptable. It's difficult, if not impossible, to put food on the table, put gas in the car, and pay rent when you are not getting paid. A key piece of disaster response infrastructure is back in operation. FEMA officials confirm that the agency's primary tornado tracking tool has been restored to service. The restoration comes as meteorologists track a significant weather system moving across the eastern United States. A level 4 moderate risk of severe weather is currently in effect for the mid-Atlantic region. Forecasters warn of potential tornadoes and significant wind damage through the evening hours across Virginia, Maryland, and the Carolinas. Local authorities are advising residents to monitor weather updates and ensure emergency alert systems are active. The Religious Liberty Commission is holding its 6th public hearing, shifting the spotlight to healthcare and social services. Today, commissioners heard testimony on conscience protections, examining whether faith-based providers and medical staff can be legally shielded when their religious beliefs conflict with government mandates.
The Founding Fathers understood the value, even necessity of religion, of religious citizens, and the freedom to practice one's faith, which is different from the freedom to worship. The First Amendment is not simply about the freedom to worship as we believe, but to live and act according to those beliefs. The Founding Fathers understood that there had to be a check on secular government in order to prevent the constant tendency to overreach and control.
With a final report due this July, today's debate marks a critical crossroads for the future of religious freedom in American medicine. We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly. Return to tradition, what Pope Leo recently did at the Vatican that restores a papal custom. Plus, it's the so-called Super Bowl of AI. We talk to an expert from the Catholic University of America about what's being showcased and what it means for our future. The Holy Holy See has released the schedule for Pope Leo's apostolic journey to Africa. From April 13th to the 23rd, he is set to visit 4 countries and 11 cities. He begins the journey in Algeria, then moves on to Cameroon and Angola. His trip finishes in Equatorial Guinea, visiting hospitals and schools along the way. His 3rd apostolic journey ends by celebrating Mass in a stadium with thousands of young people. And the Pope is making a virtual visit to the U.S. to receive the National Constitution Center's Liberty Medal, honoring his commitment to religious freedom around the world. He will be recognized during a public ceremony on July 3rd, the day before the 250th anniversary of the founding of the U.S. He will deliver his acceptance remarks live from the Vatican to those gathered on Independence Mall in Philadelphia. Past recipients have included the Dalai Lama, Ukrainian President Zelensky, and Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The Super Bowl of AI kicks off today in San Jose, California. NVIDIA is stepping into the spotlight to show how artificial intelligence will move into the physical world. The big focus this year is on humanoid robots and smarter digital tools designed to work alongside us. We're seeing the first look at technology that could transform everything from healthcare to how our factories run. As these innovations begin to reshape the global workforce, today's announcements will likely define the next era of how we live and work. Joining us now is Taylor Black, Director of AI and Venture Ecosystems at Microsoft and Director of the Leonum Institute for AI and Emerging Technologies at the Catholic University of America. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, for viewers who are not watching this conference that's been happening since 2009, can you talk a little bit about why this matters to them?
Yeah, certainly. So one of the reasons why AI is such a major part of our lives today and in the past couple of years is primarily due to some of the massive improvements in hardware. At the chief of these, of course, is NVIDIA, and whenever they have a conference explaining some of the new technologies that they're coming out with from a hardware standpoint, it enables a rippling layer of new innovation across the whole artificial intelligence space.
Now, what are some of the big headlines and what new technologies are being discussed?
Yeah, certainly. I'm very excited to listen in to their updates on physical AI and inference in particular. Physical AI is kind of this concept around being able to embed AI into a bunch of ambient surfaces around us, so we don't necessarily have to go to a computer to work with AI. It enables a bunch of things in the manufacturing spaces. It enables a bunch of things in the built environment spaces, which is just a great use of this artificial intelligence technology. Additionally, inference is what happens whenever you ask a chatbot a question. It uses an inference hardware infrastructure that is able to provide that answer back to you. And so where that inference improves, so does our experience of these different AI tools. And so I'm excited to see what NVIDIA has to say on that score as well.
Now, a lot is being made about humans being replaced. Is there anything being discussed about the future of AI and work?
I'm sure there will be at NVIDIA. They end up being kind of the supplying of the picks and shovels to a lot of the software companies that are building on top of this hardware layer. The way in which I like to think about AI, though, on this score, and while there's always going to be some workforce disruption whenever a new technology comes through, the important thing to realize is that really AI is an enabler. It enables our own innovation. It enables our own thinking when used in a way that supports human flourishing. And it's our relationship to the technology that we should be spending a lot of time thinking about and working with. And it's one of the things that we find very important here at the Leonum Institute.
Now, in terms of protection, companies can put in place guardrails, but of course, we can also see countries putting different types of laws in effect. The EU, they were the first in 2024 to put the AI Act. Of course, in the United States, Congress is still discussing regulations. Are there any ethical concerns or anything being discussed at the conference now?
I anticipate that there will be. I mean, this is a major topic for all big players in AI. I don't have any specific comments on policy around this at all. I think there's a lot of great policymakers doing a lot of good thinking here. But wherever you have humans using a novel technology, there's always going to be interesting ethical concerns and new situations that we'll have to think through. And so not only is it important to approach that from a policy side, of course, both from an industry and from a governmental standpoint, but it's also important to kind of think about from an individual and from a family and scholastic sort of environments as well. We need to be judicious of our own use of AI and AI tools. We need to work with our children and our parents as well in the use of this technology so that it serves our flourishing and doesn't serve kind of our distraction.
A lot of innovation being rolled out very quickly, and everyone needs to adapt. Taylor Black, thank you.
Thank you.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, Papal Palace, Pope Leo restores a papal tradition and moves his residence. Learn where he's headed. Plus, the Pope makes his final Lenten parish visit. What special gift he received from his flock. Pope Leo stresses that faith opens our eyes to suffering humanity and helps us see things as Jesus himself sees them with his own eyes.
E ancora, come ti ha aperto gli occhi?
At the Sunday address, the Holy Father reflected on Jesus' healing of the man born blind, saying that the mystery of salvation is revealed in this event. He explained that just like the man in the gospel, we too were born blind to the mystery of life, and we need a new light to help us to see ourselves, others, and God in truth. In the face of war and violence in the world, the Pope invited all Christians to open their eyes to see the sufferings of others and the afflictions that wound humanity. Pope Leo restored another tradition over the weekend, taking possession of the papal apartment in the Apostolic Palace. Last May, he removed the seal to the papal apartment shortly after his election. However, while the apartments were being renovated, he remained in the Vatican's Palazzo del Sant'Uffizio, where he lived as the prefect of the dicastery for bishops. The palace has been renovated and includes several rooms, a private study, and a small chapel. Pope Francis famously decided to live at Casa Santa Maria in the Vatican during his papacy. At the edge of Rome, in a neighborhood marked by social challenges, Pope Leo XIV made the fifth and final of his Lenten visits to a parish community in the Diocese of Rome. The Holy Father delivered a powerful message about peace, faith, and community. EWTN News Vatican correspondent Valentina Di Donato has more.
Applause and smiles welcomed Pope Leo XIV as he arrived at the parish of the Sacred Heart of Jesus in northeast Rome. This is part of the Holy Father's ongoing Lenten tradition of visiting communities across the Diocese of Rome. Standing before parishioners, the Pope thanked them for a gift that captured both the memory and the living spirit of their community.
Many thanks for this beautiful gift. On this side, you see the photo of the parish, to always remember. But here, you see the life of the parish, which is so important. Thank you all.
The parish sits in the Ponte Mammolo area, a part of Rome where social hardship is part of everyday life. Nearby stands the Rebibbia prison that has long shaped the neighborhood and pastoral mission of the church here. During his visit, Pope Leo praised the parish community for decades of service to those most in need.
And your parish has faithfully carried out this mission for nearly 90 years, with special attention to situations of poverty, marginalization, and emergency, with attention to the presence of the Rebibbia prison in its territory, and with many other signs of sensitivity and solidarity.
But the Pope's message reached beyond this Roman neighborhood. Speaking about conflicts around the world, Pope Leo delivered a strong condemnation of war and of those who try to use religion to justify violence.
Someone, then, can pretend to involve the name of God in this choice of death, but God cannot be enrolled in the darkness. Rather, he comes always to give light, hope, and peace to humanity. And it is peace that those who invoke him must seek.
The visit highlighted the Church's commitment to the communities on the margins, places where faith and social challenges often meet. Pope Leo was accompanied by Cardinal Baldoregna, the Vicar General of the Diocese of Rome, who welcomed the pontiff to the parish. This wasn't the first time a pope had visited the parish either. 40 years ago, the same parish welcomed Pope St. John Paul II during his own pastoral outreach to Rome's neighborhoods. As Lent continues, Pope Leo's message from the outskirts of Rome was clear. Peace must be pursued relentlessly, and faith must always be a force for hope. In Rome, Valentina Di Donato for EWTN News Nightly.
We thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, YouTube, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Veronica Dudo. Good night and God bless.